Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dave, and today I want to talk about put credit spreads. I often talk about just selling simple puts, but there are times when you have potholes in your lawn and you just need to bridge the gap across those potholes. So today I'm looking out there and I'm seeing things like Jerome coming up. I see Trump, I see Kamala. Potholes in my lawn. Remember that song by De La Soul?
Everybody's saying what to do when sucker lunatics start digging and chewing. They don't know that the soul don't go for that. Potholes in my lawn.
So with De La Soul's help, and maybe a little bit from me, we're going to talk a little bit about put credit spreads, defining our risk, so that we can escape these potholes that are in our lawn. If that is what you're looking for, please stick around. Whoop. So today we're going to be talking about put credit spreads and looking at some examples. So our example that we're going to be using is SPY. We're going to be using the Fidelity trading platform. It's simple and straightforward, easy to talk through, easy to understand. So the intent of this video is for those that are finally getting used to single leg options, buying and selling puts and calls. That's it. And moving towards defined risk trades. So in this case, a put credit spread. So it's something that I definitely like to go to in times where there's maybe things that are more out of your control than usual, like an election, for example. We've got that coming up. If you're trading out into mid-November, you're definitely going to encapsulate that time frame. Next week, we have interest rate cuts. Possibly, is it going to be 50 basis points, 25, or nothing? That could have a big impact. So during these periods of time, I think it's very important to understand how you can still use options across this time frame, but kind of bridge that and define your risk a little bit with something like a put credit spread. So it's a good kind of go-to trade for me in these types of times. So let's start by talking about SPY, which is currently at $562 a share, and understand that this is a Saturday morning, so this is static information, but it should be fine for the purposes that we have here, which is just to illustrate these types of trades. I will also show you some live trades once we get through this. But the evolution of your typical option trader, somebody comes in and they start buying calls out of the money very cheap, and they start losing on that side eventually. Maybe they hit a home run here and there, but it slowly eats them up, right? And then they depart. They're like, options are done. They move on. That's a lot of people come into the market that way. Then people with a little bit that are more established, older traders tend to be have a little bit more cash to work with. They start on the selling side, right? They kind of sell to open one put, and this kind of hits with what their strategy is, and they kind of buy into this idea, and it makes a lot of sense. And that's what I have set up here. So they find an ETF that they like the S&P 500 SPY, and they learn that they can sell to open one put contract, in this case out to October 18th with a strike price at 540, 22 points below where it currently sits. And they realize, hey, we can collect a credit, $365, and wait around for this to hit, because I was going to set a limit order, but maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe I should just sell to open a put and commit to buying that at 540 if it does drop back down to 540 after we had a nice rally this week. And if it doesn't, well, then I pick up some extra dollars. This makes sense to me, right? So that connection for a lot of people, especially for older investors, is one of the things that even drew me in when I started accumulating some wealth and starting getting more and more into options. So this is usually a hook for a lot of people because it connects a lot of things. But during periods where there's a lot of economic uncertainty, what I like to do is I just simply add a second leg here. And it doesn't have to be that complicated, but if you're very used to simple single leg options and you're just getting used to the options chain, reading it, understanding it, and everything else, trying to put all these different trades together, then it can be complicated. So that's the purpose of this video. So hopefully you understand this part, and again, if you don't, then there's those intro videos that I've done before that I think can help you get over that, and understand a little bit enough that you can get to this point. And once you get this, you'll find that this isn't that complicated. So in this case, we have sell to open, and when we're going to buy to open, right? So we have our short leg that we call our short leg, and we have our long leg, right? Our sold position and our purchase position. Short a contract, long a contract. So we're just doing one here in this case. And I don't really like October 18th. Again, we have that election coming up. So let's say let's use an example of November 15th. That's after the election. Maybe we still like that 540 strike price. Good place to start. And then we want to define our trade here. So when we define our risk, we're going to create a credit spread here. So again, it's still on the put side, right? So we have our short put and our long put, and we're going to have the same expiration. And all these variables can be played with. So as you get into this, sometimes I'll sell more contracts, short contracts, and I'll have less long contracts. I'll have, you can go in diagonally here on the expiration dates. So there's lots of different things you can do. Lots of flexibility with these types of trades. So we're going to stick with the basics though. So 540, let's say we want to go down to five points below this price, right? So that would be 535. So 540 to 535 put credit spread, meaning we're taking in more credit than we're giving up, right? So we're going to get more for this 540 because it's closer to the current price than the 535 strike, which is further away. So in this case, we're collecting $690 here. We're spending $600 here, so we have a net credit. The midpoint here shows around $88. So you're going to be pretty close to that. I think the most important thing to understand here is that we have now defined our risk with this 535 strike price that we bought, right? Just like any time that you buy a put, you're buying protection, right? You're limiting your loss. So if you buy an at-the-money put at 562 and SPY drops to $2 a share, what is your limit? Well, you get to put your shares that you have to this other person at 562. So who cares if it goes to 2? It's the same thing when you had a second leg to an option and it's a long put. So in this case, at 535, who cares what happens? In this case, if it goes to $400 a share, guess what? We get to put those shares to somebody else at 535. That's our limit that we've put on this particular trade. So it does some calculations down here for us that kind of keeps the math pretty simple. But if we actually take in $88, and by the way, the bid and the ask here, we're somewhere in between here. And again, it'll be tighter, likely on a Monday when you're doing this live. But you'll get around that $88. And because of that, the width between these two numbers is $5. 540 minus 535 is $5. So your maximum width here is 5 times $100 a share. Can you see my 5 fingers? That's $500, right? But you're also receiving a credit. So if you take $500 minus this 88, you get to a max loss of $412. So our risk reward here looks like it's going to be, I can make $88, but I can't lose more than $412. And my break-even point is somewhere in between here, and that's calculated as 539.12. Again, that number is going to be this 540 minus the credit that we received, which is $88. So if you take that $88 and you add this 12 cents times 100 shares, it comes out to that $540 strike price that we sold for that short put. So that kind of pulls it all together. So that's defining our risk with a put credit spread. So just to reiterate, let's say Jerome Powell comes out next week and he says 75 basis point cut, and that really spooks the market. SPY collapses down to $400 a share. What's our max loss? It's $412, right? That's all. It's okay. We've defined our risk. If he comes out and he says, oh, it's all glorious, and the stock takes off, stock market takes off, S&P goes to $600 a share, we'll be able to close it out for most of our gain at that point, right after this announcement. But what I love about it is it offers me flexibility to bridge across this period of time and still activate my money. So something else that might happen is they go, yeah, we expected a quarter point. That's exactly what he gave us. Maybe SPY drops to 550. It's in this gray area, but we've made profit maybe on our put side here on our long put. So we close that out for a little bit of a profit, meaning when we bought this, it was $600. Stock market drops a little bit. Maybe it's worth $700. We take that credit off of there and we're okay being undefined now because we've bridged across this period of time, and we leave our sold put open and we decide, hey, we want to add 100 shares of SPY. Or we do the same thing. We close this out and then we roll this out, adding all, maybe we go out to December or January of next year and we roll to a lower strike price. Maybe we roll down to 535 or 530. And we can get away with that by adding more time and rolling to a lower strike price and adding credit. So I love the fact that I can get across these periods of time, activate some money, and have that flexibility in these option trades. And one other note worth mentioning, because I know people are out there saying, I don't want to do all this work for $86, and I don't either. So typically I'll do something like 10 contracts of each. And in that case, obviously it's going to be $867 max gain, but our max loss is going to jump up to $4,120. But again, I like to do this type of trade because it's clearly defined, and again, it offers me that flexibility. So after Jerome comes out and makes his speech, after the election is complete, I have options here. I can close down one or two contracts on one side of the trade. I can roll out. I can roll to a lower strike price. There's lots of flexibility in this, and I will manipulate all these contracts in hopes that it'll work out in my favor. But it offers lots of elasticity in the trade, so lots of flexibility. So typically I do it in like a 10 contract bundle, like what you see right here. And here's a recent example of that exact type of trade. We're back on 9/6 of 2024. I sold a 440 put and I bought a 410 put. I did 10 contracts and I sold the November 15th expiration. And at that point, SPY was trading at 541.31. Of course, since then, we've had a nice rally in SPY in the market in general, so we're up quite a bit. But when I originally did this, it was 71 days till expiration. My max gain, in this case, was the credit that I received, the 1944 and 80 cents, minus the 1315.11 that I had to pay out for those long puts, which gave me a net credit overall of 629.69. That's my max gain that I can make. And if you look out here on the end, you can see that I've lost $800 on my long puts, and I've made $1,154.80 on my short puts. So the net gain there is about $350 overall. So I could close this out right now and do okay. But just to look at these other numbers really quick, we did have a max loss when we opened this trade of almost $30,000 because the width between those two strike prices is pretty significant, right? 440 all the way down to 410. That's 30 points. 30 points times 100 times 10 contracts minus the 629.69 that I received when I sold this gives me a max loss of almost $30,000, $29,370.31. And you can also figure out your break even if you want to see that, understanding that you sold the 440 put and the max that you can receive is 439.37 off this trade. So you can work backwards and figure out that your break even is if SPY reaches 439.37. So this one could certainly be closed out right now before Jerome gets up there and makes a big speech and ruins my position. Now, one comment I would make about my own trade is I was pretty passive with my strike selection here. So I'm selling a 440 put. It represents about an 18% drop in the S&P 500 from that 541.31 price that it was at on 9/6. So pretty passive. I certainly could have got more aggressive. I'm risking almost $30,000 to make $629. So you could certainly sharpen up your strike prices and bring them closer to the money and be a little bit more aggressive than what you see in this particular trade. Now, that first example I showed you was a trade that I made with my E-Trade account. This one is back over at Fidelity, but I wanted to show you something maybe slightly different and just about the flexibility of options in general and how you might look at things. So in this case, the day before that last trade on 9/5, over Fidelity, I sold 465 puts and I bought 452 puts. But in this case, I went short 10 contracts and I went long 9 contracts. So obviously not the whole thing is not defined risk, right? I have one contract that's left open where I might consider maybe adding those shares or rolling out or doing something different, slightly different with that contract. Now, the perk of this is it gives me extra credit, right? I'm going to have a larger overall credit because one is uncovered and I'm not going to have that debit. The negative here is obviously if SPY has a sharp decline, this could be expensive for me to go buy those shares when SPY is lowly, way down there, who knows where, at $400 a share. So again, slightly different, 10 to 9 contracts. And when I did this, SPY was at 548.56 cents. I sold this all the way out till an expiration of December 31st, end of the year celebration. Pop the champagne, and hopefully I'll have some money to do that. And the max gain here is going to be $1,076.99. So that's the difference between the cost basis of these two that you see over here. That's where you get that number. But just to show you something a little bit different. And again, because SPY has risen since this point, it's looking positive, right? You can see that my total gain loss between the two is a net positive of what looks like about $350 again. So somewhere in there. So that would be this 1683 that I've made on the one side minus the 1320 that I've lost on the other side. So far, so good. We'll see where it ends up, but just a couple examples to draw from. So potholes in your lawn can appear at any time, but sometimes they're more obvious than others. So we definitely have some potholes in our future. Go Marca. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, put credit spreads, great way to define your risk. If you have any questions on any of this, please ask down below. Appreciate you watching, like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Take care.